Commissioner Fortner, would you lead us in prayer?
Heavenly Father, I just thank you for this day, Lord. I thank you for the freedoms that we enjoy in this country, Lord. I just pray that you'll be within our decisions today. I pray that you watch over those that are protecting us, over the military, all the individuals that are overseas and in this country. Thank you, Lord, for your many blessings. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Commissioner Todacini, would you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, it looks like we need a motion to go into Board of Finance.
That we go to Board of Finance.
Having been moved and seconded by Commissioner Sullivan, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Going too fast for Commissioner Sullivan. All right, so we're in Board of Finance. Brings us to consideration of approval resolution number 21-22-13, waiving the $5 minimum penalty on delinquent property taxes. It's an action item. I believe it's going to be brought by Brian Myers.
Chairman Beckstead, Commissioners, good afternoon. For your consideration of approval is Resolution 21-22-13, waiving the $5 minimum penalty on delinquent property taxes. The New Mexico state statutes allow a county to impose a penalty of 1% per month, but not to exceed 5% of the delinquent tax amount, except when the penalty is less than $5. Each year, San Juan County waives the $5 minimum penalty on delinquent property taxes, and we are again requesting that the Commission approve Resolution 21-22-13, waiving the $5 minimum penalty.
Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
I move that we approve resolution 21-22-13. Is it?
Very well. Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion? Not hearing any. Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Thank you. So I'll stand for a motion to go out of Board of Finance back into our regular meeting.
So moved.
second.
Having been moved and everybody's moving. Moving and shaking today. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Not hearing any opposition, I'll presume that it passed unanimously and motion carries. Brings us to our regular meeting. Approval of agenda. Mr. Stark, are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, no changes for tonight.
Okay.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Having been moved and seconded, those in favor to approve the agenda say aye.
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 Those opposed? Not hearing any, I presume it passes unanimously. Motion carries. Brings us to our consent agenda. Number one, approval of regular meeting minutes of July 27th, 2021. Number two, consideration of approval of treasurer check register for July 2021. Number three, consideration of approval of finance check registers for July 2021. Number four, consideration of resolution of housing choice voucher administrative plan. Number five, consideration of approval of sheriff's office implementing a deputy fitness incentive. Number six, consideration of approval of sheriff's office implementing a lateral deputy vacation incentive. Number seven, ratification of adult detention center overtime stipend program. Number eight, consideration of memorandum of understanding with City of Farmington for senior center funding. Number 9, consideration of approval of resolution number 20-22-07 as required by section 1-16-3, proposing form of ballot questions to county clerk for voters to decide whether to impose the county-wide emergency communication and emergency medical and behavioral health science services tax increment of 1/16 of 1%. Does anybody wish to take any of the items off consent agenda to move to the action or to the new business items? Not hearing any, I'll stand for a motion regarding the consent agenda.
So,
Having been moved that we pass the consent agenda and seconded, those in favor say aye. Aye.
aye.
Those opposed, passes, motion carries unanimously. Which brings us to new business. Item number 1, consideration of proclamation declaring September 11th, 2021 as Caregiver Celebration Day in San Juan County, New Mexico. It's an action item that's going to be presented by Commissioner Terry Fortner.
We do have a proclamation, and we have those framed for those over here, but I don't know if you wanted to.
You want me to read it or?
Certainly,
Just
if
present
you
it?
want to.
Do you want to read it into the record? Your call.
Proclaiming September 11, 2021 as Caregiver Celebration Day in San Juan County, New Mexico. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic continues to impact the health and well-being of people across the world, and specifically in San Juan County, New Mexico. And whereas the healthcare professionals and caregivers at San Juan Regional Medical Center, with bravery, commitment to purpose, and compassion, stepped up to face the challenges for caring with the patients with COVID, and continue to serve on the front line in battle with COVID-19. And whereas the caregivers at San Juan Regional Medical Center have demonstrated their calling as healing heroes throughout the COVID pandemic. And whereas as of the date, San Juan Regional Medical Center has cared for over 2,000 COVID patients. And whereas the incident command at San Juan Regional Medical Center was activated on February 5th, 2020, shortly after the first COVID-19 case in the United States was reported and public health emergency was declared. And whereas the pandemic response at San Juan Regional Medical Center has been strengthened by the outpouring of support from the entire San Juan County community, from coordinated preparedness and planning efforts by San Juan County leaders to generous donations collected by the San Juan Medical Foundation for COVID-19 related expenses, to contributions of personal protective equipment, and to endless messages and countless other acts of support. And whereas the first external drive-through assessment site in the region was erected in a matter of days, and was deployed at San Juan Regional Medical Center on March 13th, 2020. And whereas the first positive COVID patient was identified in San Juan County, New Mexico on March 21st, 2020, with the individual being tested at the San Juan Regional Medical Center external assessment area. And whereas in order to care for COVID patients, the caregivers at San Juan Regional Medical Center demonstrated the core values of San Juan Regional Medical Center by rapidly implementing significant operational changes, I saw that, and adaptations including, but not limited to creating a dedicated respiratory intensive care unit, designating respiratory and non-respiratory workflow processes in the emergency room, creating additional negative pressure rooms, this is a big deal, initiating a COVID-19 screening phone line. You can remember how scared we all were. Setting up PPE reprocessing in the cardiac rehab gym, expanding the in-house laundry services to wash an average of 3,000 unreusable gowns per day, providing This is very emotional for me. I didn't know it would be. No. Providing in-home visits by EMS to home patients, providing COVID-19 testing for employees and pre-op patients at San Juan Health Partners at the urgent care, offering a monoclonal antibody infusion clinic, erecting a dedicated respiratory clinic for San Juan Health Partner patients, and many more innovative adaptations. Whereas the caregivers at San Juan Regional really led the state, in efforts to provide continuity of care for COVID-19 patients outside the hospital setting with its innovative COVID to home clinic implemented in April of 2020. Whereas the caregivers at San Juan Regional Medical Center began safe and effective deployment of vaccine distribution upon arrival of the vaccine on December 15th, 2020, protecting our caregivers and area first responders and their families. Whereas the caregivers at San Juan Regional Medical Center Frontline have been involved in research studies to improve COVID care and development of evidence-based inpatient and outpatient COVID therapeutic protocols and guidelines. Whereas the courageous actions of the caregivers at San Juan Regional Medical Center during the COVID worldwide pandemic saved countless precious lives. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of San Juan County, New Mexico, that September 11th, 2021 is hereby declared Caregiver Celebration Day for the caregivers at San Juan Regional Medical Center, who are true healing heroes in our community. And it is further resolved that the citizens of San Juan County remain grateful to our healing heroes at San Juan Regional Medical Center for their courage and commitment to making life better here in San Juan County. Approved this day, 17th day of August 21st. And I was served on the board at the hospital, and I saw this first and foremost. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions, comments? I think it's a great thing that we get to. Yes, Commissioner Sullivan.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very nice. Yeah, I'm looking for it.
Is there somebody going to
Didn't have anybody here to ask.
Is there anybody that was going to receive this proclamation today? We had been told, but we didn't know if they were able to make it. So anyway, thank you for listening to that. And we really appreciate what San Juan Regional Medical Center did in this time of crisis.
So with that, I'll stand for a motion.
Mr. Chair, motion to, second.
He's quick on the
Yeah.
motions, not as quick on voting. I don't know. All right. Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion? Not hearing any. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. The motion carries. Can we make sure that we get a copy of this
You
to
bet.
San Juan Regional?
We
so that-
absolutely do so, Mr. Chair.
All right, that brings us to item number 2, which is consideration of proclamation declaring August 17th, 2021 as Nonprofit Day in San Juan County, presented by Jim Cox.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good afternoon. Today is actually the day, National Nonprofit Day, and we thought it would be very fitting to request the Commission declare San Juan County locally as Nonprofit Day. You know, nonprofits within our area have been a tremendous help, not only through COVID-19, but over all of the years through the history of San Juan County. They've helped many lives. They've enriched the lives. They've saved lives, and we certainly want to appreciate all of their efforts and something as today being able to make that proclamation is something that we are requesting today. If it's okay with you, I'd like to read the proclamation.
Very well.
San Juan County, New Mexico, proclaiming August 17th, 2021 as Nonprofit Day. Whereas San Juan County is fortunate to have a number of nonprofit organizations which provide healthcare, assistance to impoverished, economic development, educational support, and youth programming. And whereas San Juan County recognizes that nonprofit organizations have positive impacts on our community and serve a vital role in facilitating charitable giving and social action. And whereas the nonprofit organizations in San Juan County provide direct care and support to our community by providing resources such as access to food and emergency service, such as rent and utility assistance. And whereas San Juan County recognizes that nonprofit organizations have been and continue to be essential during the COVID-19 pandemic to ensure citizens of San Juan County have access to necessary resources in order to remain safe and healthy. And now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of San Juan County, New Mexico does hereby declare and proclaim August 17th, 2021 as Nonprofit Day and urges the citizens of San Juan County to support the nonprofit organizations in our community by volunteering or providing in-kind or monetary donations. We have various nonprofit organization representatives today. If you all vote to issue that proclamation, we would request that you all come down with get a photo. We do have framed proclamations to give to those nonprofit organizations.
Very well. Well, any questions? I'll stand for a motion.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve.
Having been moved by Commissioner Totticini and seconded by Commissioner Sullivan, is there any further discussion? Not hearing any. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, it passes unanimously. The motion carries. So we'll step down and except I want to hear where they're all from, though.
Yes, Miss August, Salvation Army. Guys up front and center. We're gonna have to get together like we're friends. Yeah. Yes. Tell people that.
Yeah.
What's that?
Don't have those.
All right. Brings us to item number 3 on our agenda, an update from the Four Corners Economic Development Organization. It looks like we have Arvin and I think Chris Hunter's here as well. So Arvin Trujillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the commission. It's good to be back again. Again, as we've done before, Four Corners Economic Development is very focused on looking at how we can begin to diversify the economy here in San Juan County, as well as the Four Corners region as a whole. One of the vehicles that we've really invested in is our website. And what we wanted to do today was to give you an idea as to what we're doing now in terms of developing metrics behind that website, how we're going to be gauging our interaction. You're going to see the kind of outreach we're getting hits around the world on the website. So again, what we're wanting to do is to really bring this aspect out. And so myself, along with Chris Hunter, will be providing this presentation. Basically, as I indicated, we are marketing San Juan County. For a long time, people have been under the impression that really no one knows about San Juan County or the Four Corners region as a whole. We've been working very hard to improve our image as well as get our advantages and really get our a description of our community out to the general public, to the region, and to the nation. We're represented by 64 members at this point. We have a number of civic organizations, including yourselves, as part of FORSET. We are a true private-public organization. We work hard to make sure that we keep the relationship strong with each of our members. And all of our members are participants in what we do and how we do it. I stress that each of them be a part of our goal teams, and because we want to hear exactly what is out there and what is happening and how do we best describe our county. And with that, I want to thank the Commission for your investment in Four Corners economic development. It's vital. We're working hard to really improve that aspect. And I'd like to turn it over now to Mr. Hunter to give you a full picture as to what our website has and what kind of metrics we have behind it. And we'll be open for questions afterwards. Mr. Hunter?
Thank you, Arvin. Thank you. It's a joy to be a citizen of San Juan County, speak to the commission, my neighbor up the hill, fellow citizens. I'm a marketing and data consultant. I work for and own, take the trash out there first. But I'm really honored to serve my community in this role. There's some passion, you're right. Market San Juan County, what we have. We saw census that I think are eye-opening for us. And so we're going to talk about a cost-effective way to get the word out. Mission here is a significant investor in the activity stewardship report. Straight report, a quick demonstration of something on the website that I want all people about. Ask you, Mike, this presentation along to whoever, however you want it out. We got to get the word out. Four Corners economic development too. All right.
Okay, stand at the podium or grab the mic. Okay, thanks, Devin.
My mouth is usually pretty.
Okay, all right. This is a hard slide to read, but it's foundational for what we do. The work of Four Corners Economic Development is done through goal teams, and you're going to hear a lot more about goal teams from Arvin in the coming months. But goal teams 3, 4, and 5 is where the meat and potatoes of economic development are done. Goal team 3 focuses on what industries we want to attract and build up. And that's based on what our unique assets are here in terms of workforce, taxes, incentives, land, buildings, climate, government friendliness. The list goes on of all those attributes. Workforce capacity then obviously is critical to having jobs and in these new industries and in the industries we're working hard to retain. The last goal team, data analysis, marketing and data analysis, is the team that helps goal team 3 get it done. And it's within goal team 5 that the website plays a key role. So I want you to contextually kind of understand how we get the work done. Next picture, Devin. Digital marketing is the way we get the word out. So in the same way, Facebook is pervasive everywhere. If you want to learn about the governor's new health mandates, you probably saw it on Facebook as opposed to any other place. Same is true for how we get the word out on a community. The foundation of this is a website. FORSET had a website, but the metrics, the attraction, the ability to get people to stick with it and use it was minimal. It was a start, but it wasn't much. We needed to make a substantial investment in time and dollars in a website. We found a vendor to do that. We're going to be sharpening up more about what we speak to, and the website then becomes the bottom floor, if you will, of the digital marketing strategy. We have new Facebook and LinkedIn pages, and Arvin can tell you torturous tales about trying to get something like that set up. But we now have unique brand identity for San Juan County and Forsaid through those two engines. We have a new biweekly newsletter. I'd like to see a show of hands here of who's subscribed to that. Devin, okay, some of our commissioners. We got some other commissioners that are not yet subscribers. And we have out in the audience 0. Okay, so Arvin, I think we have opportunities. Okay, and bottom line on all this is it's a long-term game. I think sometimes people expect miracles out of organizations that are starting from nothing or mostly nothing. It's going to take a while. We've got to continue to work hard at marketing San Juan County. Next picture, Devin. So to do this, the first thing I recognized needing, and I come out of a corporate communications background, is the fact that we need some help. So we have retained an agency called Golden Shovel Agency out of Minnesota that is specializing exclusively in economic development organizations. They support over 230 organizations around the country with helping them craft, shape, and get the word out on who they are. You're going to hear a lot about Golden Shovel coming up, and I'm going to urge you collectively as a community to get to know them. Bottom line for me is the fact that over 90% client retention rate with average client tenure being multiple years says a lot about the value proposition of this, our largest single vendor. Go ahead, Devin, next slide. Now I'm going to go through these very quickly because everybody's eyes glaze over. But as Arvin pointed out, digital marketing is something you got to have and look at, but you also have to be holding yourselves accountable to what's going on. First chart shows how many users and how long have been on the website now for 3 months. It's only been up 3 months. Most important number here is 8 minutes and 21 seconds. The average time spent by an economic development website viewer, less than 2 minutes. So what is that saying? People are actually getting information on San Juan County and finding it to be of value and digging down and looking at it. And I think that's a function of the content and the design and the work that we have out.
So I just
on
wrote
the
your
website.
numbers down when I looked up the website really quick and then shut it off. I'm sorry.
No, you would hurt my average, Mr. Chair. So I'll talk to you later. I know where your new office is, by God. All right. Okay, next slide, Devin. So how are we doing here? So this is looking at things like Facebook and LinkedIn. So in LinkedIn, we now have 71 followers. We had 3 to start with. So LinkedIn is truly the professional channel that gets the word out. We have an intentional strategy to get more out there on that, and we're getting likes and then click-throughs and everything else. And Devin, if you could hit the next slide. Facebook. This arrow, and this is why I think it's important, commissioners, that you get this presentation. This news feed on Facebook is a very powerful tool for us, and we amplify the news coming out of San Juan County. So here's an example post that came out in April where San Juan County is a participant in a pilot program, and we had 1,000 people reached by just that post. So we amplify things that our members are doing, and that includes obviously the county as a significant investor. Devin, next picture. So we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Google. Google Analytics is the back end of how Google responds to people who spend money on advertising. Now, Forsaid is spending 0 money right now on advertising. Down the road, that's something I think we've got to look at, and it's one of the significant underfunded challenges that we have as an organization and as a community. But you can see from Google statistics, we've had a lot of sessions, a lot of users, and we'll continue to monitor that. And it goes up and down as news feeds come out. So news feeds drive traffic to the website. So that's why you see spikes and valleys and spikes and valleys. Next slide, Devin. All over the world. Now, obviously, North America is big, But folks, don't lose track of the fact that this is a global economy. COVID doesn't last forever. Capital is fungible, and we've got things to market here, and people around the world are going to find us and are beginning to find us. Devin, next picture. Breaks that down further into U.S. demographics. Obviously, New Mexico is a heavy attractor. You know what's really fun to see? Santa Fe and Albuquerque are looking at us. This tells me state government actually is saying, oh, there might be another part of the state somewhere up here, which is encouraging to see. Devin, next slide. Similar sort of stuff. Now, let me spend just a minute on Golden Shovel. So you can see the website there, goldenshovelagency.com. And I would ask the commissioners, I'd ask the audience, if you care about economic development, if you want to learn about it, if it matters to you, this is your place to go for education. These guys share best practices across the nation on what's working and what's not working and what's a high ROI strategy, et cetera, through webcasts, podcasts, white papers, and virtual reality tours of facilities and properties that have done a good job. So one of the things that Arvin and I are on a mission for is to educate our community about economic development. We know we need it, but what is it and what works best? And how would we as a community come up to speed on all of this? So this is our digital marketing agency, and Arvin, I think they've done a good job. Would you agree with that? Yep. Very happy with them. Next slide, Devin. The ask. The ask. You know, you never have a presentation without an ask. So here's the ask, and I'm looking at the commissioners, but I'm looking at the community as a whole as well. Like the aforesaid Facebook page and LinkedIn pages. And so please use your own account to do that. Just the mere fact that you like the page is telling all of your other contacts that you like the page. The number one way we get the word out cost effectively starts right here in San Juan County by just liking the page. Next, reshare a post. Now, not every post would resonate with you. I don't reshare everything I see, nor do I like everything that I see, like in quote marks here. But there are lots of things I do reshare that make sense. So, for example, we have a new Salvation Army Corps officer in town, young Christopher over here, and he's new in town, and there was Salvation Army Facebook posts about that. Well, I like the Salvation Army, so I shared that out. People need to know about the new Corps officer in town. Commission, we need to hear from you, and Arvin, I know, has this on his radar to work with you to understand how you think we can better serve this community as an organization. Next, hold us accountable. I know a number of you, actually I've got some clients in the room, it's all about results. And so hold us accountable on behalf of the tax dollars you invest in us. And then lastly, continue to invest in economic development. Four Corners Economic Development is your marketing arm, and we need to make that return on investment work. And we need your personal support, your financial support. I know a number of you serve on committees, and we need that. It's going to take the village to market the village. And I think that is the last slide, Devin. Okay, before we get to questions and answers, I want to show one thing that has happened this week that is a big aha and is big news for the community. So Devin, could you slide? Okay, and I'll bring the mic over here, I guess. Okay, have you hold the mic. So one of the things that you need for economic development is to talk about the properties that are available. So if we want to attract new business and industry here, an honest question is, well, what do you got in the way of buildings, land, and other things like that? Very difficult to aggregate that data. We worked hard at all different kinds of solutions. We now have a solution and it's implemented. And as Devin gets that firing up here, and we'll look at that, I'll point out that we have over 200 properties that are commercial and industrially zoned in San Juan County for sale or lease. But you would never find them except on this website. So we know this is going to drive traffic, and the community as a whole is going to find stuff you will not find on the multiple listing service. So this is going to be a great resource. So Devin, if you could hold the mic here for me, if you would. All right. So we're going to hop over to the Where's the mouse? Okay, hamburger patty. And click the hamburger patty. Oh, one more time here. Site map. We're going to go down here to business properties. I do have new glasses coming. So, yeah, yes, available business properties. Thank you. Should have worn the other computer glasses here. All right, running. Let's thinking. Okay, yeah, the wheel is turning. Boy, it's turning, right? It is turning. Okay. Okay. All right. We're getting loaded up.
Anybody pay the internet bill?
Hey, did you guys hear about the Verizon outage today? Hospital down. You guys posted up. Boy, I should have had you load this page up here, Devin. I'm sorry for, bear with us, folks. We've all been there. We're some of us old enough to remember the big step from 14.4 to 28.8. All right, well, this is going to be a map, and the wheel is still turning there. Wow, Devin. Yeah. A lot of stuff going on. Okay, bigger pie pig. All right, well, while that's cranking up here, what we're going to see is a map that's going to show properties, and then we're going to have the ability to filter and find some properties. So we're going to just quickly take a look at how to do that. And Chair and Mike, I look forward to doing some more training on these tools, because the county people are going to really like this tool, but a whole lot of other people will as well. All right, it's still wheeling up here because we'll have pictures here. Oh, okay, well, I didn't bring my top hat and cane, but trying to be respectful of time here. Chunka. Okay, it's getting there. Okay, so wheels through turning. Okay. All right. Oh, I'll hold it one more second. All right, so we want to find a building. We're looking for 10,000 square feet. We want it for sale, not for lease. All right, so this would be a typical kind of question an economic development organization would get. Without this tool, the question then becomes, how would you find it? So a guy like Arvin has to start picking up the phone, and he starts talking to every commercial broker in town to say what he's got. So, all right, so we're going to go down here to filters, and that hit all filters there. And so you see a dialog pop up. We're looking for sale, 10,000 square feet. We want industrial property. And notice there's a thing called opportunity zones. We're not going to click that. But hey, folks, our opportunity zones are severely undermarketed. This is a huge opportunity, pardon the pun, for us. But now when we click search properties, we're going to move from 200 properties down to the universe of what we've looked for. And it'll load up in pictures here. I don't know why it says land. It should be just buildings. So I must have hit something wrong here. Yeah, no, there's more than that. And so whatever I did, I didn't do this quite right. But suffice to say that's sale, lease, buildings. That's what we need. We need to hit buildings. But this, it's always dangerous to do an unscripted demo with an audience. But you guys get the idea. Here's the point. If you want to learn about what's available in the community, it's here. Here's the bottom line for the county as a whole. Our properties, there we got them up. Our properties per square foot, our acreage for developable land per square acre is dirt cheap relative to the rest of the region and the nation as a whole. So that's an attribute that we're going to be marketing about San Juan County. And of course, that's tax base for us and jobs. So with that, I will stand for questions, if there are any. I flew through, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Your beginning part, you mentioned the members of Forsyth, Aztec, Bloomfield, Farmington, Kirkland.
And San Juan County.
Navajo Nation's not part of it, huh?
I'm going to have Mr. Trujillo speak to that, because that's something that's near and dear to all of us.
We are working to try to get the Navajo Nation involved. I've had meetings with the chapters, with Shiprock, with the RBDOs. Right now, we are working to see if we can forge those relationships on a permanent basis. But as far as Forsyth is concerned, NAPI, NTEC, Navajo Oil and Gas are all part of Forset. So we're working on getting more of the businesses involved as well as the chapters involved, and then ultimately the Navajo Nation. So right now we do have the MOU in place, looking at the construction or the planning of a railroad, and we're working hard on that. We're trying to get money out of the federal government, but that's
Grant agreement would be.
yeah, that's right. And so again, that's kind of what we're looking at. But commissioners, one thing I do want to stress is we are moving through this, and to the community, this is a concerted effort by everybody. Every business should be involved in economic development. How do we sell San Juan County? Many of you nonprofits out here, we're looking to bring retirees here to the region. We're looking to bring businesses here to the region. How can you help us market this area? What services, what opportunities do you have that you can help employees, that you can help business owners, that you can help community members? Because those businesses, those employers are also looking out for their families. How are the schools? How's the community? What kind of service-related opportunities are there within that particular area? So we can all sell San Juan County, but we need your help. And as we understand all that information and compile that information, we can put it on our website. And as you can see, people around the world are clicking our website. And so they'll begin to see this, and they'll begin to look at this as an opportunity to possibly relocate here to San Juan County. And that's what we want. Thank you.
Commissioner Totochini, I may also point out, there's a lot of data in that website that covers the Navajo Nation. We intentionally, deliberately build it to include the entire Navajo and Hopi reservation, because none of that data is available to the nation in the way that it's packaged here. And so hopefully, as Arvin works with the chapters, the RBDOs and others, there'll be a groundswell of support to say, wow, we're getting actionable intelligence that we don't get from someplace else. Well, hey, that's Forset providing you value. Thank you for your question.
So my question is, on your property lookup or your where does the list come from? Who generates?
Very good question, Commissioner Lanier. It does not come from the multiple listing service. Okay. The copyright problems that were very difficult. There is a company that I went out and found in Atlanta, Georgia, that recognizes a niche need by economic development organizations. And what they do is they scrape data from all kinds of individual realty firms. So if you see a Chuck Hagan property, it's coming straight off the Dimick site, but not through the multiple listing site. And that's how we improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Any other questions? What's the easiest thing for commissioners to do to help support Forset?
Perfect. Devin, can you go back to the presentation to that very last slide before questions and answers? And Commissioner Beckstead, this would be very helpful. First, go to the website itself. You're going to see, and this is for the community as a whole as well. You're going to see a pop-up window. We all hate them, but there's a reason it's there. Sign up for the newsletter. The second thing, Devin, if you could. Oh, he's working on it. Okay. Second thing, second thing Commissioner Beck said is like the LinkedIn page and the Facebook page, and then share out posts that make sense to you, for your circle. So I have 500 plus contacts professionally all over the world in LinkedIn. When I reshare a post, it's going globally. Okay. So you guys have the same kinds of Rolodexes in your own circles. And then the last thing, we need your financial support and engagement in the goal teams. The financial support, the county and the city are both $50,000 a year investors. Hold us accountable to that investment, but be engaged with us as well. That's, I think, the new sea change blowing through Forset. So that's the way, very practically, Commissioner Beckstead or Chairman Beckstead to help us out. Okay.
I guess I just want to say thank you, because after attending the meetings, I've learned quite a bit, and there's a lot to digest. run this, so it's nice to be able to ask questions when you need to, because I know there's people that have that interest, but they're not sure where to go. So,
Well, Commissioner Fortner, I think with your permission and Mike and the chair and all, I think we personally as an organization should be here to give an update pretty regularly on what's going on, much more than just website, because that public accountability, the public trust, the individual member businesses need to hear what we got, because this is the marketing agency for the county, and we need to be on the ball and listening and making those stewardship reports.
I agree with that. And also that will give us opportunity if other commissioners, or we may have some input that maybe I've heard, but nobody else has heard, because Mike has heard, but they haven't had the opportunity to hear that. So having that report from you, taking information would be great.
That'd be great. And one of the things I'm excited about is marketing our opportunity zones. We have a number of them, and my guess is most people here don't even know what an opportunity zone is. But that's another tool in the toolbox, has just kind of been laying on fallow ground that we need to go out and work on. Arvin, I know, has been talking with COG also for some help. So I got to commend Arvin for getting out there and trying to connect some dots that needed to be connected. Okay.
Arvin, Chris, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Devin.
All right, that brings us to item number 4, consideration of approval of resolutions numbers 21-22-11 and 21-22-12 in support of grant applications to the river access at Cedar Hill project. Mr. Burrell.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I believe at this point you all are familiar with the new boat ramp project in Cedar Hill. It's on the former Denver and Rio Grande Railroad property that the county inherited when the railroad was abandoned. Obviously, it's on the Animas River in that neck of the woods. We actually had a public information meeting in this room 2 weeks ago, hosted by Commissioner Lanier. I believe we received what I would consider constructive feedback. Certainly nothing that would derail the project. So the challenge is now finding a way to pay for it using somebody else's money. We identified 2 well-timed grants to do just that. The first is through the New Mexico Economic Development Department, the Outdoor Recreation Division. Their 2021 Outdoor Recreation Trails Plus grant is now open. It closes on the 31st of this month. That grant program has a $25,000 max award with a 1-to-1 match requirement, so another $25,000 in local match. The second program is perhaps more lucrative in that these are settlement dollars from the Gold King mine spill. Earlier this year, State of New Mexico and the Sunnyside Corporation and their subsidiaries reached a settlement of $1 million for projects such as this. It's being managed by the New Mexico Office of Natural Resources trustee. There is no cap on that grant award. Again, it's a $1 million program available to affected communities along both the Animas and San Juan rivers. For that program, we're requesting $160,000 with a $40,000 local match commitment. So the resolutions before you, 21, 22, 11, and 12, are in support of the project, our commitment to the match requirement, and a commitment to maintain the projects for their lifespan. So with that, staff would request approval of those resolutions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Are there any questions?
Hey Nick, on the still up there in Gold King, how much did the farmers get out of that?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sullivan, this is more of a grant opportunity for political subdivisions. I believe there certainly could be agricultural entities that would partner with a political subdivision. But I believe, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, perhaps Joe, there are other settlements in place or pending for agricultural uses.
Okay, so $0 for
Or is I understand that?
Did that answer your question, Commissioner Sullivan?
Go ahead.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Commissioner Lanier?
Yeah, I would just like to thank Nick and Mike and the citizens of Cedar Hill that came in. It was 2.5 hour meeting. Very positive things come out of it. A group put together by that community that's going to work on some signage. And there was just some great ideas. It was just refreshing with all the stuff that's going on in the world and in the United States right now. It was nice to see opposing sides come in together and be very respectful and come up with just great ideas. And Nick, hats off. You did great.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, there'll be a budget adjustment, with this, so you'll be okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Toto Cheney, yes, the previous commission back in December approved the project and funding of up to $170,000. Now, the budget has not been, the budget adjustment has not been done as of yet. And so probably a good thing because we've waited to get final design and a final cost estimate. And so now we've got the opportunity for these two grants. So the potential is that we'll have just a local match associated with the project and be able to reduce that number significantly.
And perhaps you might be able to find some grants for the bridge as well.
Mr. Chairman, I would certainly love to find some grants for the bridge. If we can find the right one, we'll certainly chase it.
Okay. Any other questions? I'll stand for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make.
Okay.
Second.
Move to approve both resolutions?
Okay. And second that?
Yes.
All right. Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Sounds as though it was unanimous and the motion carries.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to item number 5, which is consideration of resolution number 21-22-14, adopting the New Mexico Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan. Jim Cox.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, come before you today to do the annual ICIP plan. It's a 5-year plan. This one's looking at 2023 through 2027. What this is it's ultimately a planning tool that we utilize here locally and then at the state level. It's something that we actually upload to the state system. And so what it's utilized for is any legislative dollars that might be available to be appropriated. We certainly want to make sure that they see the projects that we're looking at that are either shovel ready or somewhat ready to be to commence that project, as well as the governor has a pot of money that could be considered for all of these projects. Specifically, we do list the top 5 projects for that pool money, and we could go through that in a second. But really, the process of updating this plan is first to have public input. Last year, due to COVID, we weren't able to have public input, but luckily this year we had 3 public input sessions, one on July 14th, July 21st, and July 28th. We went through the current plan. We answered any questions and ultimately asked, was there any additional projects from citizen perspective that they would like to see added onto the list. And so through that whole process, we also looked at from the existing plan, what has already been appropriated either through the past legislature, maybe internally funded through county funds, grants received. And as a result of that, we did remove the radio infrastructure upgrades and replacements, the 5-mile bridge decommissioning alternative study, the Cedar Hill pedestrian bridge improvements, the Riverview golf course irrigation system, water line replacement, the remodel of Flora Vista Fire Station number 4, and the McGee Park lift station improvements. All of those were funded through legislative appropriations, the internal funding, and through grants. So really great to see that amount of projects removed and funded. Through the process of public input, we did add the North Kirtland Heights wastewater study. We additionally, through consultation with Mr. Farrell, added a cold mill and asphalt resurfacing of County Roads 6480 and 390. Finally, we did update from the prior year schedule just the dollars associated with the projects that were already there, just due to inflation and anticipated change in construction costs. You know, I talked about identifying the top 5 projects for the governor's call. Item number 1 would be the Tota subdivision water and wastewater system improvements. Number 2 is the Pinion Hills Extension Phase 3 right-of-way acquisition. Number 3 was just standard county road improvements. 4 is the cold mill and asphalt resurfacing of County Road 6480, and then 5 is ADA improvements at county facilities. As you'll see on the ICIP, the 5 years, they are color-coded. They are put in a priority order. At this time, I would stand for any questions, any revisions that you might want to see done, changes to the amounts. And then after that, I would request that you would approve Resolution 2122-14, which would allow us to submit the finalized ICIP plan to the state.
Are there any questions, comments? Webs? Not hearing any, I'm sorry, Commissioner Sullivan?
Oh, I was just gonna make a motion to approve it.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion? Not hearing any. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Not hearing any. It passes unanimously and the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to item number 6, which is consideration of approval of resolution number 21-22-10 to approve sale of tract of real property in the old Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad right-of-way that adjoins 10 Road 3490 in Flora Vista, New Mexico. It's presented by Joe Sawyer.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, when the Rio Grande Western Railroad ceased operations in the late 60s, they granted the right-of-way between Farmington and Aztec to San Juan County. And the land was granted in fee simple, which meant that the county owns the land, not just an easement. And in 2017, some landowners adjoining the easement at 10 Road 3490 in Flora Vista, they accidentally built their house halfway on their property and halfway onto our railroad right-of-way. So the commission at that time, rather than force the homeowners to tear down their home.
Accidentally tear it down?
Accidentally tear it down. We agreed to sell them just enough property to resolve the encroachment, but not impede the right-of-way that badly. So right after that happened, the property and the house were sold to Christopher and Brittany Allison, who approached the county last year to buy an additional 1,296 square feet of property on the west side of the house to build a room and a wheelchair ramp. And staff at that time determined that the purchase would not encroach on the right-of-way because it was to the west of the house. And the previous commission agreed to sell the land to the Allisons at the commission meeting on September 15, 2020. So as part of the sale process, the Allisons have obtained a survey showing the land to be purchased to be worth $1,374. Staff requests the commission give formal authorization to sell the the 1,296 square feet. Additionally, staff requested the commission, there is a general grant of easement that was granted in the 80s that allowed the public to cross the right-of-way at any point because the right-of-way was keeping people from reaching their land. So in addition to approving the sale, we would ask that the commission extinguish the part of the easement that applies just to this 1,300 square foot piece, just to tidy things up. So there's not an easement still existing across their living room, basically.
They don't want people walking through the house?
No, probably not. So staff requests that you give formal authorization to sell and also to extinguish the grant of easement as to that property.
Are there any questions? Not hearing any, I'll stand for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Resolution number 21-22-10.
Commissioner Sullivan, was that a second?
Yes.
Having been moved and seconded, is there any further discussion? Not hearing any. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Not hearing any opposition, I presume that it passed unanimously and the motion carries. Brings us on to item number 7.
Mixed cannabis.
Which is, thanks for the prelude, which is consideration of adoption of San Juan County Ordinance number 120 Cannabis Regulation Act. And this is an action item brought or presented by Mr. Sawyer, our county attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm going to present some remarks, and then after those remarks, I'm going to ask the commission to hold a public hearing before adoption of the ordinance. And at that time, the public can make comments. So due to the passage of the Cannabis Regulation Act earlier this year, the state will begin processing license applications for cannabis producers and micro businesses on September 1st, 2021. So it's important, therefore, to have the county's ordinance in effect before September 1st. And as we discussed at our last meeting, the act passed by the state severely limits the ability of local governments to restrict cannabis. The act does allow local jurisdictions to adopt time, place, and manner rules that do not conflict with the act. So at the commission's request, staff drafted a proposed cannabis regulation ordinance that we went over last meeting. The notice of intent to adopt that ordinance was published on Sunday, August 1st in the Daily Times, and the affidavit of publication is in your packet. We went through this ordinance at our last meeting and highlighted the main points. Since then, we've gotten more input from the public. The main concern, if I can characterize it, was primarily focused on the 1,000-foot distance requirement between a cannabis establishment and residences, churches, libraries, cultural centers, community centers, public parks, and government facilities. And the concern was that was too great a distance. Although we did receive other comments that stated that distance was not a problem. So we've gotten comments either way on that. Some of the people who were concerned with the 1,000-foot distance requirement were put more at ease when we pointed out to them that we have a variance process that would allow them to make application to get a permit even though it was closer than 1,000 feet. Let's see. We also As part of this process, we've looked at ordinances from other states and other counties. I'll just characterize what I've found so far. We looked at Washington State. Washington State laws, it starts with 1,000-foot distance requirement as the base.
And that's per state law?
That's per state law. And a local jurisdiction can decrease that distance with an ordinance. So the legal department found maybe 6 or 7 ordinances from different counties. And we noticed that some kept the 1,000-foot distance requirement, and that's a distance requirement between cannabis establishments and schools, arcades, parks, that type of thing. Some of them decreased it to 500 feet. By statute, they can decrease it up to 100 feet, but that's it. And I think we found a couple that went to that distance, but not very many. Most of them were 1,000 or 500 feet. We've talked to several individuals involved with the cannabis industry. One of the persons we spoke to, we learned today that Archuleta County has 1,000-foot distance requirement between schools and cannabis establishments.
And that's in Colorado?
That's in Colorado. But there are other municipalities. Once again, Colorado allows the municipalities to set their own distances. And some of them have gone to much shorter distances in hundreds of feet. I think Durango is like that. Durango, Colorado. So if you would like, and by the way, our distance requirement is from property line to property line. And that is based on the Liquor Control Act, has that same distance measurement. And then also in the cannabis regulations for schools and daycare centers, they have that requirement, property line to property line.
Well, but if they share a property line, how does that work?
It's not covered in the regulation, the state regulation. Under our ordinance, if they share a property line, you couldn't obtain a permit unless you came and you applied for a variance. And then in that case, the commission could potentially grant the permit under a variance. So if you'd like, I could go over the main points of the ordinances again, or we can just focus on the parts that you want to discuss. And then after we've discussed those parts, we can have a vote. Not a vote, public hearing, and then a vote after that. So if you'd like me to just briefly go over the different parts of the ordinance, or if you'd like me to, otherwise I'll go straight to the location portion of the ordinance, because that's where most of our comments and concerns seems to have come from. Or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I think give us a general overview of the ordinance, just so that we're all on the same page, and then focus on some of the areas where we've had comments or concern from constituents, address those specifically, then we'll go from there.
Okay.
And just generally the ordinance. We don't need to get into in-depth of it on it.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the ordinance, section 1 is definitions, and those definitions are taken from the state statute. Section 2 states that this ordinance only regulates commercial cannabis activity. It doesn't regulate the personal cultivation or use of cannabis. Section number 3 is section 3A is location. 3A is the minimum separation distance of 1,000 feet from any residence, religious assembly, church, library, cultural center, community center, public park, or government facility. The 1,000-foot distance requirement does not apply to a school or daycare center or to a residence on the same lot or parcel as the cannabis establishment. And there's no separation distance between one cannabis establishment and another. The reason for the 300-foot distance requirement for, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Section 3B states that there's a minimum separation distance for school and daycare centers of 300 feet. And that comes from the state statute. They won't allow us to increase that distance. The 3C is the measurement, and for the purposes of the ordinance, distances are in a straight line from property line to property line. So the property line of the cannabis establishment to the property line of the residence or church. And D is an exception for subsequent uses of the nearby property. If a cannabis establishment is already lawfully operating, it won't be held in violation of the location restrictions solely because another use moves within the distance. So if there's a cannabis establishment in existence and someone builds a house closer than 1,000 feet, the cannabis establishment won't be in violation. This section is where we got the most comment. As I said earlier, some people think 1,000 feet is too short of a distance, whereas others, most of the people we've talked to who are already in the industry, they didn't find a problem with the 1,000-foot distance. And as I said, we found many ordinances and other places that have the 1,000-foot distance. I do know that the McKinley County is also considering a very similar ordinance to this one today. And they've gone with a 300-foot distance. And their rationale was that's what the state put forward for schools and daycare centers. So they're going with that. Also, there's a 300-foot distance requirement under the Liquor License Control Act between a liquor establishment and a school or church. So that's another basis for that 300-foot distance. We went with when we drafted this ordinance, part of the reason for the 1,000-foot distance was because of odors. We were trying to stop conflict based over the smells that are produced by cannabis establishment.
I think some of that stemming from Commissioner Totticini talked about some of her constituents that were in Shiprock and Hogbacks that were dealing with that grow operation out there that couldn't deal with the odor of it. And so I think that's where that concern initially came from. But go ahead.
And Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I know that we've also found some articles that address, I guess this is a concern in other areas, like California is having trouble with odors. So that was something we were concerned about. Section 4 covers operating times. A cannabis consumption area, which would be equivalent to a bar, their hours would be between 7 a.m. and midnight, Monday through Sunday. And that is closed. That's very similar to under the Liquor License Control Act, where the time a bar can be open is until 2 a.m. We pared it down to midnight for this ordinance. For cannabis retailers, it's also 7 a.m. to midnight, Monday through Sunday, and that mirrors the Liquor License Control Act regarding packaged liquor sales. So that's why we went with that, with those numbers. We haven't received any comment from the public on that. Section 5, cannabis consumption areas. This just covers if you get a cannabis consumption license under the state, we can't prohibit these operations from locating in the county because the statute says that any activity that's allowed by license by the state can't be completely prohibited by the county. So we have to allow these types of licenses. And this language in this section just states that if people are going to consume cannabis in these locations, that they have to have it has to be in a designated smoking area, and persons under 21 can't be there. That's another requirement of the statute. No one under 21
Hey,
can consume cannabis.
when does this have to be, when does this have to be signed off on?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sullivan, our proposal is that we adopt this ordinance tonight because beginning September 1st, the state will start issuing licenses for producers and micro businesses. And if we don't have it in place before that happens, any cannabis establishment that's already in place, we can't make them move under state statute. So they would be grandfathered in. So we'd like to have our regulation in place immediately. And this ordinance, excuse me, Commissioner Sullivan, this ordinance would go into effect immediately under an emergency clause.
What's the penalty for a violation of this stuff? Say over the 300 feet.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sullivan, the penalty would be a $300 fine, and it would be that fine would apply for each day of violation. So if you operate without a permit, it would be a $300 per day fine. And that's all we can impose for statute.
John, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
We've got things we've got to do before then. We have to have a public hearing and do other things, Commissioner Sullivan.
Okay.
So we'll wait to do that, but we'll give you that opportunity.
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Section 6 just states that any person who engages in commercial cannabis activities must also comply with the San Juan County Business Registration Ordinance. Section 7 states it requires that persons seeking to operate cannabis establishments get a permit from the county. That would be obtained from the San Juan County Community Development Department. It'd be a $250 for the initial permit, $100 for renewal. They'd have to give information on their company that they're doing business under, the name, the address, other contact information. They would need to provide their federal and state tax ID numbers. They would need to show that they're in compliance with our business registration ordinance. They would need to confirm, they would need to allow our code compliance officer to confirm that they are in compliance with the distance requirements. They would need to pass the San Juan County Building Code inspection and a fire inspection. And no permit would issue to any mobile buildings or drive-through establishments. If you failed to comply with the conditions, it would result in non-issuance of a permit. If someone was denied a permit, they could, under subsection L, they could either appeal it to the commission, or under M, they could seek a variance. It would frankly be a better idea to seek the variance first before you appeal decision. And subsection N just states that operation without a permit is violation of the ordinance. Section 8 prohibits mobile or portable units or drive-through locations. Section 9 prohibits smoking in a public place, and that just echoes the state statute. Section 10 grandfathers in medical cannabis establishment locations, and it also requires medical cannabis establishments to get a permit under this ordinance. Section 11 states that the code compliance officer, a San Juan County deputy, or the fire marshal can enforce the ordinance. Section 12 provides it's a $300 per day fine for violation. Section 13 states that if any section of this ordinance is declared invalid, the rest of the ordinance would stand. And Section 14 provides that this ordinance would go into effect immediately as an emergency because of the urgent need for regulation. And if for some reason a court held that it wasn't an emergency, it would go into effect 30 days after today's date. And that's the ordinance in a nutshell.
Very well. Do we need to have a motion to go into the public hearing, or can I just declare that we're?
I think you can just declare it.
Okay, well then at this time, we'll open the meeting up as a public hearing. Open it up for comments from the public. We will ask you that as you come up to give your comment, you give your name, just name. Name is sufficient to the county clerks because she's keeping a record of what is going on. We would also ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I believe there also may be some emailed comments. We'll wait to read those in at the last. Mr. Stark, if you would read those in when those that are here have completed their comment. So at this time, we'll open it up to public comment.
Thank you for letting me speak to y'all. I'm not a professional speaker. My name's Joe Rokas. It's spelled R-O-C-K-O-S. Lifelong resident of San Juan County. Actually, you answered most of my questions for me. I am a licensed cannabis grower through UNM. And my concern is I've got thousands and thousands of dollars in greenhouses, but with the restrictions, the new restrictions, it is less than 300 feet on one property. So I'm wondering, with being already licensed, will my property grandfather over?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I believe it would be grandfathered in.
Great. And
Is it for hemp or for
it says specifically my license says cannabis sativa L. I grow under 3% THC. So it is a cannabis hemp license bowl.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, under Section 10, existing medical cannabis establishments are allowed to continue forward. I guess we would, provide you a fuller answer. I guess it would depend on what kind of establishment you are. And if you're not a medical, my assumption was that if you were a hemp producer, that you don't even need a license for that, so that you would be okay there too.
Well, actually, the hemp program in the state of New Mexico has to go through UNM. Jacob Cruz is the point of contact there. They license you each year. It is considered cannabis, but it is under a certain percentage THC. I'm looking at, obviously growing the other stuff because, the hemp side of it, that market has taken a dive because marijuana is legal now. I've already got established greenhouses. I'm actually looking at a couple other business opportunities as far as on the manufacturing side, extracting the oils, that kind of stuff, and also looking at opening a dispensary in San Juan County.
So I would urge you to talk with Mr. Sawyer specifically, because I think there's a lot more information that he would need to give you his assessment of whether it would apply or not. I think there's more information that he needs.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
And yes, Commissioner Sullivan.
Yeah, I'd like to just make a comment. I think if we're going to go 5 or 1,000 feet, we ought to go 300 feet on this accordance with the state. And then that puts us in the same boat as most everybody else.
Okay, we've still got some other comments from the public, so we'll hear from them, Commissioner Sullivan.
Hello, good afternoon, San Juan Commissioners and county staff. My name is Peter Karras. I have property at newly named 22 County Road 6013. Tell people I'm between the A1 Auto Recycling Junkyard and the river. People like, oh, I know where that is. Thank you for the opportunity to give comment on the ordinance 120 today. I would like to address section 3 location, and specifically the minimum separation distance of 1,000 feet from any residence.
For those that don't know your background in history, we talk about your work during introduction.
I've been told by staff that the necessity for this ordinance was to address concerns or future concerns of specific odors emanating from cannabis establishments. Yes, some species of cannabis sativa plant do give off odors when it is in its flowering stage or later stage of life. That's about it. The odor that would be produced from the producer is not all cannabis establishments defined in section 1, letter D. So this is just the grower. When the list of all those establishments are retailers, producers, or whatnot. First, the state law allows for every adult over the age 21 to grow 6 mature plants, up to 12 plants per household. With the latest population census of San Juan County being estimated 124 residents, and the average American daily consumer being about 10 to 12% for cannabis of the U.S. population, this could lead to an estimated 12,000 to 14,000 houses that legally grow cannabis in their backyard. To use an ordinance to block small businesses and farmers who would like to use their properties to create legal tax-paying businesses for a possibly creating an odor in which any other resident can legally create seems to be biased and unfair and not in the spirit of the law. Second, okay, it's down here. Second, 25 to 30% of all products sold in states with legalized retail establishments are edibles. It would be unfair to penalize a baker for producing a non-odorous cannabis oil-infused cookie, cakes, or fine chocolates. This ordinance, as written, would be biased to a baker who would only possibly be spreading the neighbor's smell of fresh baked cookies. There would be small business opportunities for cannabis manufacturers whose main jobs are taking sealed packaged dried flowers and then repackaging them into resellable amounts, filling plant material with paper cones called pre-rolls, and delivering to retail establishments. In other legal states, these positions have become very popular for the handicapped and the elderly. For these reasons and others, I recommend, if found necessary, I recommend it found not to be found necessary to include all establishments in section 3, but to adopt to see fit for the future specific perceived nuisance which the county seeks to control, which is odor. Lastly, hemp. Currently, the state licenses and allows for hemp to be grown and cultivated within New Mexico without any odor restrictions. I feel it is important to make this designation. Hemp and cannabis are the exact same plant. The genus and species are Cannabis sativa. The only difference is that the cannabinoids or the chemical makeup of the hemp plant has to have a THC level less than 0.03. In closing, I would like to give a personal example. Last year, I leased my neighbor's field, which had several residences on both sides. This 5-acre field laid fallow for years. It had been a breeding ground for many weed species and suffering from severe drought and erosion symptoms. I paid over $700 to the state and applied for a New Mexico hemp license, hired 2 employees, and successfully raised 2,500 7 to 8 foot hemp plants, merely feet from residents with 0 complaints. In fact, any feared opposition was quite the opposite. Many were glad to see the noxious weeds removed from the field and managed. Some are glad to see the fields that were put to use, and people also drove by, giving the thumbs up, and some even stopped and asked if we were hiring. So please don't assume people will have a problem with cannabis production. Many I've spoke to were excited about new jobs and opportunities, along with new user fee tax-based generation. In conclusion, I own a 3-acre farm in the county, and my neighbor's home is within 1,000 feet of my property line. To clarify how the 1,000 feet is going to be designated, it's going to be from my property line to 1,000 feet to residence. So if the residence is built within 900 feet of my property line, my property would not be allowed. Lastly, on the clarification, just with all due respect, Mr. Sawyer, the ordinances that were referenced from other states did not include residences. They include schools, daycares, those type of things. To include a residence who built his property 1,000 foot from my property line, if I had 150 acres, you're now saying that I cannot use my property for any cannabis establishment. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Guys, my name is Jason Little. I am probably one of the largest cannabis producers in the county. I've been doing it 11 years now. We have a nonprofit, New Mexico Alternative Care, that has been in the city of Farmington and the county for 11 years. That's going to be a hard gig to follow. That was very well put together. I'm not that put together, but I wanted to ask you the same thing, Mr. Sawyer. In your research, did you find any other states or counties that were doing residents, not just schools, churches, and daycares? I know in most of the regulations that I've looked at, it all addresses, as he pointed out, schools, churches, and daycares. I haven't seen a residency. I was just going to ask if you have.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, actually, the legal department did the research, and Ms. Wayne is here, and she did the primary research. So I would have to defer to her if she recalls seeing a residence in that research.
Okay. And one thing I wanted to bring to the attention is I am in the licensing process of the recreational thing of converting a medical to a recreational license, and dealing with the regulation department as of today has been very hard. They were supposed to have things done July 10th, July 20th. Then they just gave us a date of August XX. It's really what they put on the letter. And I want to make it apparent that I don't feel that we're in an emergency situation for you guys to make this decision right away. The state statute said they will start licensing in September 1st, but have up to 90 days to issue those licenses. So I don't see, with how ours are delayed right now, they're nowhere close to getting the other ones done. And heard straight from the second in charge at the RLD that it is a mess there. So as far as an emergency situation of handling the 1,000 feet, I think you guys have a little time to work on that, but you are correct. If anyone's getting licensed before September 1st, they're gonna have an issue, but they're not even licensing us, and we were supposed to be priority. So I wanna let everyone know I did grow 25,000 hemp plants within 1,000 feet of my neighbor. And we've done it 2 years in a row with no smell complaints of any kind. We have a neighbor, I believe she's right at 300 feet away from my property line. And we're on 67 acres, they're on 22 acres. And so I don't know how much more rural we need to be than that. And I know there's a variance process that we're going to go through. I think the variance process is going to be key to how successful this 1,000 feet thing is going to be or not. I would suggest you guys looking at doing the 300 feet as the state has done. We have proven 11 years now, 300 feet away from schools, churches, daycares, residents, no complaints, 11 years. Well, I think that's all I would like to say is that we did grow 25,000 plants here in the county with no complaints and no odor problems. So that's all I got. Yeah.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to address you during this public hearing. My name is Dave Cuesta, and I serve as the Compliance Director for Maggie's Farm. Maggie's Farm is a Colorado operator that was founded in 2010 and began with a single store and a single outdoor cultivation. Since then, Maggie's Farm has grown to 7 stores with an 8th on the way and 3 outdoor cultivations all throughout Southern Colorado. Our founder, Bill Conkling, he was born in Southern Colorado, went to school in Durango for college, and spent many years in this area. He is very, very pleased to have the opportunity to potentially enter this area of New Mexico to conduct cultivations. Bill is the founder of the company and still runs the day-to-day operations. He puts compliance at the highest priority, and he has a track record in Colorado of very, very tight and secured facilities, extremely minute inventory controls, knowing exactly where everything is going and who has touched it. And then finally, thorough employee trainings, just to make sure everybody knows they're always operationally within compliance with state and local guidelines. Bill and Maggie's Farm have recently had the great pleasure of securing an agricultural property here in San Juan County. It is a very large property that has many acres on it. We really are hopeful for the opportunity to operate a producer license at this particular facility. We appreciate all the work that has gone into this ordinance, and we know when a new industry comes into a community, a lot of thought has to be put into it. We also appreciate distance restrictions, and we know that space needs to be preserved between certain community institutions and cannabis establishments. We would politely propose one change to the ordinance, and that is 3A, the distance restrictions, and specifically between what we think could be considered either producer licenses or agriculturally producing licenses. For instance, our property that we have secured has a there's a farm manager that lives there day in, day out. He currently oversees the operations for hay and alfalfa. We have several other neighboring farms that they also have on-site residences, folks that are there day in, day out to oversee the farm. With the property to property line measurement, we could even be hundreds of acres away in some cases. But due to how that's measured, it would disqualify us. We do think that the agricultural climate here in this area is tremendous, and there's a great opportunity for San Juan County to lead the way for some of these outdoor growers. So that is the very polite and respectful proposal that we would make to this group is some sort of an exception on the residences when it comes to agricultural production. Thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I may not have pointed out, but if there is a residence located on the cannabis establishment property, that residence doesn't count for purposes of the distances restrictions. So you can have a residence on your property and still grow, and it wouldn't be covered by the ordinance.
So just so I understand how the measurement works, let's say you have 2 adjacent properties. So there's the property line, and let's say your neighbor's house is over 1,000 feet away from the property line. What would happen in that situation?
Mr. Chairman, the way that the ordinance is currently written, they would have to seek a variance because It's from property line to property line. So
So you would have to have a buffer property that's vacant land in between your property and the property that has the residence.
yes, that's correct. The way it's currently written. The distance requirement could be changed. It could be perhaps from the crop to the residence. It could be, or to the property line. It could be from the property line of the cannabis establishment to the actual residence or church building. There's lots of ways you can do it. I use the property line to property line because that was what we had in our adult entertainment ordinance. And it was also in the liquor control ordinance and also in the cannabis regulations when measuring distances between a cannabis establishment and a school or daycare. So that's the reason I use that, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the way we measure distance under our ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, if I might add, in response to Mr. Little's comments, the majority of municipalities and counties that have a zoning code are managing where cannabis can be grown through their zoning code. And a lot of examples in Colorado, California, where cannabis is not even allowed to be grown on a clearly residential property in a residential area. So the dilemma that we have, as you know, in crafting this ordinance and trying to find that balance between those that want to grow and those that want to continue to live in their property without, with the absence of a strong odor from a commercial grow operation, not a personal grow. We're talking, on a micro business level up to 200 plants. On a major recreational license level, potentially the state's looking at going to what Colorado has allowed for, which is up to 10,000 plants. And so,
Commissioners,
can you hear us, Commissioner Sullivan?
yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Oh, my
we're
phone
still
was dead on me, but I just now got it back. So
okay.
He's back. We're glad you're back, Commissioner Sullivan.
yeah.
So just
Great
continuing
job.
on quickly. So that was the
Did you
dilemma
go ahead?
that we faced. Oh, sorry.
Did
Commissioner
you go ahead and
Sullivan,
make
we're
a
still
motion
in.
then, or are you waiting for me, or what?
Now you're still on hold. We're still in our public hearing, okay?
Okay. Who's speaking right now?
Mr. Stark is addressing us.
Yeah. So, Mr.
Well,
Chairman,
yeah.
that was the dilemma we faced with the lack of zoning, is trying to find that balance. We want growers, we want the cannabis industry to be successful in San Juan County. And we know there won't be success if you have conflict between growers and in residential areas. That's going to be troublesome for the growers. That's going to be troublesome for this commission to have to deal with those continual complaints if we're, not going to regulate distances from residential areas. So I just wanted to point that out. Plenty of examples in a lot of other jurisdictions and how they generally through their zoning code will restrict or limit the type of grows that can happen in residential areas.
Peter Karras again. Just so, if it's not clear to you guys, it's not going to be clear to us. So as I understand it, for our conversation, it goes from property line to residence. How can you do property on your property line if they're abutting properties?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, it's currently written from property line to property line. We can change that if you'd like, but yes, that does pose a problem when two adjoining residences are right next to each other. And they need to be 1,000 feet the way the ordinance is now written. We can either change if you wanted to, we could change the property line measurement or not. But that's what, there's plenty of other examples of where the property line to property line it's in the Liquor Control Act when it deals with schools and daycares to a liquor establishment. I believe it's in the regulations for cannabis, and so that is up for
That's how
you.
the 300 feet or that's how that measurement is done in the state cannabis law?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. That's the way they handle that.
Sorry, I know this isn't Q&A, but why not just regulate it for property sizes like a quarter acre and under, or half an acre and under? Because that's a standard residential lot. You're worried about people creating cannabis establishments in residential neighborhoods. You do it by size, not by like a 3-acre farm that I have. It's already established farm. You're saying what I can and can't do on my farm because my neighbor's house is 900 feet from my property. If the point is to keep a lot of residences, make it zoned so you're at a quarter acre or half acre smaller, not to allow it.
Mr. Chairman, I could, that sounds like a good idea with regard to certain properties, but it wouldn't stop others. It would just depend on, I don't know if that would cover every situation, but that is a possible solution as well. Another possible solution would be to just say a cannabis producer must be a certain distance. But then the problem there is that there are a lot of people who don't want a retailer within a certain distance.
Are the 300-foot distance that's in the state statute, does that apply to everybody in what we define in letter D in our definition? Does the state limit all of those entities?
All cannabis establishments, Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Or do they only limit certain establishments?
In the state law. I don't have it. Sorry, I'm making the county manager do the legal research, but I don't have that in front of me.
So pulling up HB 2, and as you know, out of the 172-page bill, only 2 pages are dedicated to local control. But if you look at it, it states, there it is. Require a licensed premise or a cannabis consumption area to be more than 300 feet from a school or daycare center that was in existence at the time of the cannabis establishment or integrated cannabis micro business was licensed. So,
and Mr. Chairman, the definition of cannabis establishment is basically the same in the state statute as what we have. I did add cannabis consumption area to cannabis establishment. That was my addition because I figured we wanted to regulate those distances as well.
So the 300 feet applies to all of those that we have in.
Mr. Chairman, let me clarify because I was reading from the wrong section down below. The cannabis establishment or integrated cannabis micro business is located at a minimum distance from a school or daycare center as determined by the local jurisdiction, but which minimum distance shall not be set at more than 300 feet from a school or daycare center that was in existence at the time of the establishment or micro business was licensed. So 0 to 300, 300's in our ordinance, and it's a cannabis establishment or integrated cannabis micro business. So as you look at cannabis establishment, that's a lot of business. That's a lot of different cannabis businesses.
So all of those are already regulated by the state statute.
Correct.
At 300 feet.
I think I've got Commissioner Sullivan calling in here. Commissioner?
Oh, Mike.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Yes, we're still in the meeting, and I'm gonna put you on my cell phone, and we'll continue the meeting going forward. I believe we still have more public comment to go, so if you could hang in there and hold on, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my phone back on charge because it went dead on me again.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Jason Little again. I just wanted to add something that you may not know. The Department of Health has licensed a property on Eubank in Albuquerque, that we know of, that the back door of it's a retail space, is less than 300 feet from the playground and grounds of a church. The front door of the church, or the school, it's a school, playground of a school, not a church. So this playground in the front door of the school is in excess of the 300 feet. So the DOH granted a variance on that license to be granted, and it's inside the 300 feet from a school in the city limits. So just so you know that those variances are happening already in the state. That's why I wanted to present that to you.
You didn't carry my motion, so.
Commissioner, we're still taking public comment.
Sorry, I'd like to speak one more time. Joe Rokas. I understand the churches, the schools, all of that kind of stuff. My place is just a little over 7 acres. My grow area, from my grow area to my closest neighbor, property lines meet, but there's a river, ravine, treed area between the properties. On the residential side, everybody has neighbor property line to property line. There's no vacant fields out there. You know, my other neighbor has got to be 2,000 feet away, but we do share a property line. So using the property line to property line for the no grow, I mean, it basically just kills your farm. You know, and as far as the smell and the odor and that kind of stuff, I mean, I could have a feed yard out there. I've got neighbors that have cows and sheep, and in August and July, you know, you smell it. That would be the biggest thing that I would ask you to take a second look at is house to house. Thank you.
Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Maria Ray. The way I understood one of your deals is we had to have fire inspections and county manager inspections and everything on ours on top of our city inspectors and our state inspectors. Is that what I understand?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, if you're in the city, it wouldn't be on top of that because this ordinance only applies to the areas outside of the cities. Yes, it probably would be in addition to any state inspections that you may need to get.
Okay, well, the way you had stated it was anywhere in the county, which includes city municipalities. That's where I understood that. And the 300 foot also was an issue because we don't have resident right up against us. But the odor from the plants will smell a whole lot better than the trash yard right up against my property. That would help to bring it down with the 300 feet like the state has it. So as I take it, City of Bloomfield that we're already working with their manager and zoning would be the ones with the fire chief coming in and inspecting us, not having to keep the county involved as well. Correct?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I believe that is correct. I don't know what Bloomfield's ordinance is going to look like, but in case I didn't make it clear, this ordinance only applies to the county, which would be outside of the Navajo Nation and outside of the municipalities.
Thank you very much for that clarity.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, just with one caveat that as you might recall, the city of Bloomfield contracts with us for fire services. So it more than likely would be a county fire inspector, fire marshal. So see Mr. Mueller in the back shaking his head up and down, affirming. So.
Any other comments?
Hello, my name is Jeremy Bonnet. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak. I am a cannabis entrepreneur in Colorado. I started a business with my bootstraps. My business partner and I took every dime we had and we put it into a storage unit and converted that into a medical store and grow. This was in 2014. It started as medical. By the end of 2014, we worked with the county commissioners, Archuleta County commissioners. I have businesses in both Archuleta County and Pagosa Springs, as well as the city of Durango. And I am looking at opportunities to move down here. I believe that this ordinance is extremely reasonable. It's one of the shortest ordinances I've ever seen written. Over half of it is definitions. I do know in Archuleta County where I operate, there is a 1,000-foot buffer from any residential property. I understand you guys don't have zoning, so therefore it's trying to be constructed without zoning. I do know that the measurements are also from a residential property line to the corner of the building where the marijuana business is located. So, I mean, the measurement could be worth looking at from property line to property line, abutting property lines, but you have residences that are 3,000 feet apart. Maybe it should be property line to the corner of the building. I don't know. That's really up to you guys. But I would say that I think this ordinance is extremely reasonable and one of the most business-friendly ordinances I have ever seen. And I've looked at a lot of communities and tried to start businesses in a lot of communities, and it can be very difficult. Also, remember, we are dealing with a federally regulated Schedule I substance. So, I mean, it is worth regulating. You do have people who don't agree with it. You have people who do agree with it. And it's a very split vote. I know that the majorities go for regulation and taxation and legalization, and I believe in that. I don't necessarily believe that we should over-restrict it, but I don't believe that this ordinance is over-restrictive. Thank you.
Any other comments?
We have two written submissions.
Will you read those in for the record or
You
in
bet.
the open meeting?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the first one was received on August 16th from Miss Christy Stanley, who I believe is Mr. Karras's wife. So we spoke on the phone and a very pleasant conversation. So it says, "Dear Commissioners," I'm sorry? Oh, if I misspoke, I apologize.
I think there's a song about that.
My apologies. Her comment reads as follows. "Dear Commissioners, the Cannabis Regulation Act provides for the commercial cultivation, manufacture, and retail sales of cannabis. It also provides that all residents of New Mexico be allowed to grow cannabis at home. The CRA provides for smaller canopy sizes up to 200 plants, which can be grown sustainably within a smaller area, with the intent that small businesses and small farms would not be left behind, as the potential of big agro and big business would presumably shut out equal opportunity, social justice, and equity. The proposed San Juan Cannabis Regulation Ordinance number 120 cites that the cultivation and manufacturing of cannabis creates strong odors and can involve the use of significant amounts of energy and water, and requires security and other measures to reduce the risk or theft or other diversion to the illegal cannabis market, including possession and uses by persons under the age of 21. Public health and safety are of the utmost importance, but the concern lies in targeting licensed cannabis businesses specifically, which is not the best way to achieve that goal. Cannabis businesses are some of the most tightly regulated, taxed, and scrutinized businesses in the nation for a reason. It promotes public safety. Clients and product safety are cannabis businesses' number one priority, and this is a good thing. Not one cannabis business would jeopardize losing their license by allowing unscrupulous or illegal activities within their businesses. Statistics have shown that where legal cannabis establishments operate, the illegal black market cannot thrive. Furthermore, no one under the age of 21 is permitted on site to work or to purchase cannabis recreational. There have been long-established rules and industry practices that make legal cannabis businesses safe, effective, and energy efficient. Many utility companies offer substantial rebates for the use and implementation of energy-efficient light sources such as LEDs and solar. The uses of ventilation, security cameras, drip irrigation, and fences are all standard nationwide and are not unlike any other business or industry, respectively. Like other businesses, products grown and manufactured are tracked using various software platforms from seed to sale. No admittance is allowed without a government-issued identification and is required for both work and by customers for purchase. All cannabis businesses, regardless of size, are bound by the same statutes and regulations. Regulated cannabis businesses promote the best interests of public health, safety, and welfare because the goal is to not only promote good-paying jobs that generate tax revenue, but also to shut down the illegal black market and the influx of illegal operations that permeate our state. Cannabis Regulation Ordinance number 120 as written, however, opposes small farmers, small businesses, and micro businesses from being able to cultivate 200 plants or manufacture cannabis products safely on acreage. The means of measurement by which this ordinance uses the 1,000-foot buffer being boundary line to boundary line from residents makes nearly all small farms in RE2, RA, or RE1. I believe that's referring to maybe a zoning code that we don't have. Was it down? Yeah. Okay, yeah, there's a chart down below, but that would not be applicable to San Juan County. Where similar property is unavailable for cultivation or manufacture, unless there are specific provisions for small farmers on acreage to be licensed to cultivate and manufacture this crop. I fear that large-scale illegal growing in basements, garages, or outbuildings in subdivisions or other residential homes continue to occur, and by not allowing our small farmers to supply legally grown and manufactured cannabis, more and more people living in subdivisions and apartments will grow their own legal cannabis due to the lack of sufficient supply, which will make it far easier for children to have access to it. Permit state license cultivation and manufacturing in the following residential zones. I propose the following changes be adopted into the San Juan County Regulation Ordinance number 120, specifically section 3A. 1,000 feet from any residence of this ordinance shall not apply to the following residential zones. And then she had listed out a couple different zones: RE2 residential estate, which is 2 acres, RA, which is rural agriculture, which is 1 acre, and residential estate, which is another 1 acre parcel. Okay, then
Do you know what the RE, REA, or the RA reference is?
Mr. Harris?
She used standard residence.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, we did have one other comment, and unfortunately, we've been unable to identify the correct name for this individual. I know Mr. or Mrs. McGahey has reached out a couple times to contact Mr. Chris. His comment was submitted under Mr. Chris Nunya, which we don't believe is accurate last name, but that aside, I'll go ahead and read his comment. I want to comment on the ordinance proposed by Joe Sawyer, ordinance number 120, section 3, location. I am challenging the minimum separation distance of 1,000 feet from any residence, religious assembly, or church. This 1,000-foot distance, when combined with the way San Juan County measures things from property line to property line, suggests that no individual who lives in a subdivision or neighborhood or smaller piece of land can produce, manufacture, sell, or serve a commercial cannabis on their land unless they own hundreds of acres. This is because of the definition of measurement is the nearest point of your property line to the nearest point of the other property line. Comment that was made by Mr. Sawyer. My property line and neighbor's property line are the same line. This would mean there would be 0 feet between a cannabis establishment and a residence. If either of us chose to start a cannabis business anywhere in our respective yards, Cannabis Regulation Act was sold to the people as a growth engine for small businesses. Nothing in the Cannabis Regulation Act nor the rules proposed by the CCD prohibit people from growing cannabis in their yards. In fact, there is a CCD proposed rule, I believe that refers to the Cannabis Control Division, requiring a diagram of the area to be used for cannabis activities that seem to support the idea of people doing just that. Go read New Mexico Administrative Code, Title 16, Chapter 8, Part 2, Section 18, paragraphs G and I. 1 square acre only measures 208 feet on all 4 sides. So 5 square acres stacked side by side barely measure 1,040 feet on its longest axis. Hypothetically, 1 acre grow area in the middle of a chunk of land which is separated from any other property line of another residence by 1,000 feet would require the chunk of land be somewhere near 120 acres in size. This is prohibitive to residents who wish to start a small business on their property, but supports big businesses who have endless resources.
You, Mr. Nanya.
Make one clarification before I leave. It's on the emergency part of this. The state hasn't even put out applications. But the law says that they'll begin accepting applications September 1st. They have 90 days to approve it. So there's no way anything's going to be approved by September 1st as stated. Applications aren't even out. I can almost guarantee that they're going to push that line of accepting applications down through, and it's going to be much longer than expected to get licensed. Just wanted to make that clear.
And Mr. Chairman, just to respond, if you would allow me to, you might recall that what started our initial discussions 3 meetings ago was a letter sent to us by the Regulation and Licensing Division, sent to all counties and all municipalities regarding the upcoming, the passage of the Cannabis Regulation Act, and that September 1st, the deadline, that's the deadline for counties and municipalities to have ordinances in place. We did attend, myself and Mr. Sawyer and a couple others, the cannabis legalization conference in Albuquerque. And I actually had the opportunity to speak directly with the deputy director of RLD who presented at the conference. And his strongest suggestion to us is to make certain that we have our local ordinance in place by September 1st. I do hear the concerns from Mr. Karras and Mr. Little, but that was the direct advice to us at that conference, that we make sure we have our ordinance in place because they will begin accepting applications. And who knows, maybe the state surprises us and starts issuing licenses.
But the letter from the division said that our ordinances need to be in place by September 1st?
Correct. Would you like me to pull that up and read that into the record? Or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me find it real quickly. If you had other comments that you wanted to entertain while I'm pulling it up.
Any other, before I close the public hearing, is there anybody else that wishes to address the commission?
Mr. Chair, didn't the assistant attorney, was she gonna tell us something? Or that's not.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I did offer to have her quote the Washington ordinances. I don't know if she has them with her. She doesn't. I figured when she didn't jump up that she may not have it. And I apologize for throwing her under the bus like that as well. But I thought I had them. But I think they're in my office.
Register yet to the commission?
No, I'm looking forward to doing that as soon as
it's going to happen today.
I was going to do it after our agenda items were finished.
Welcome to the county.
Do you want me to do it now while we wait for the letter to?
Mr. Chairman, I did find the letter was sent to us on June 15th, 2021 by the New Mexico Licensing Division. I'll just read the excerpt that applies. The CRA and its provisions go into effect on June 29th, 2021. The newly created Cannabis Control Division is required to begin processing license applications for cannabis producers, cannabis producer micro businesses, and properly licensed medical cannabis producers no later than September 1st, 2021. Further, the CRA provides that the CCD must begin issuing the remaining license types, including manufacturers and retailers, no later than January 1st, 2022, and that the retail sales of adult cannabis are to begin no later than April 1st. And then it follows up by talking about to ensure the needs of local communities are met, I urge each local jurisdiction to make a determination on these issues as soon as possible. The adult cannabis industry will bring economic development opportunities to every corner of the state. And by taking thoughtful action now, local leaders can maximize these opportunities in their community, in the best interest of the needs of local communities for the safety of all citizens and aid in New Mexico's adult cannabis entrepreneurs, we urge each local jurisdiction to act on this determination as soon as possible. That was from Linda Trujillo, who's the superintendent of New Mexico Licensing, Regulation and Licensing Department.
One thing I appreciate about our county is that even if the state's going to be slacking in their implementation, we want to make sure that we're prepared. So I appreciate staff for keeping this on track. One thing I do want to discuss, and I think that it's, important to, and it's been one of the issues brought up is how we measure. And frankly, even if the state is using the property line to property line measurement, I would like to explore looking at either a property line to actual physical residence or corner of the building / corner of the field, corner of the last cannabis product to the residents. I think that that's a more fair measurement than property line to property line. And it, in my mind, makes more sense than requiring there to be a buffer property that's vacant in between, a farm and a residence. That to me doesn't, that seems to me to be too restrictive. So that's one of the concerns I have. I don't know if any of my fellow commissioners see those same issues or not. I think that here in a few minutes, we're going to have to potentially make some amendments to the proposed amendments to the ordinance if we want to change anything. So with that, I think that there might be one more comment, and then I'm going to close the public hearing.
Just wanted to, Mr. Chairman, just wanted to state one more thing. The state regs for the medical cannabis switching to recreational cannabis, they've got us new regulations that are coming out that are different than that HPL2 you're looking at. And one of them in there is 6-foot security fencing. And so your measurements could start off of that grid of it has to be fenced in regardless. So you could go from that distance to a residence or that distance to a property line would be tough, maybe to a residence.
Do you know if so that's the medical marijuana side of things?
That's going to be that's going to be recreational.
It's for the entire industry.
Yeah,
there has to be a 6-foot
security fence. So,
and is that? Have you seen that in the HB2, or is it not in the HB2?
It is not. It came out in the RLDs. Things that we're supposed to do as a medical to convert into a recreational. They gave us a list of parameters, and it was not in the HPL2, and we went over that earlier, but it is a fencing requirement is in place, as well as cameras and other security stuff.
And
so
those same fencing requirements are in the recreational. Have we looked into that?
Mr. Chairman, yes, they are in there.
And one thing I wanted you to consider as well is with the 1,000 feet as it's written today, the push to the black market may be stronger than you think, because people that have these 3-acre, 5-acre farms that are already growing hemp are already planning on, they already have hoop houses, they're all ready to go, and they don't get granted a license from you. That doesn't mean they're going to not grow. That property, the product has a market value everywhere, and you don't want to push more people to not getting licensed because it's too hard or can't be achieved, and they can't go buy new property to achieve their dream or their equities of business or whatever they're looking for. So just wanted to, as a possibility.
Well, but we also want responsible people in the industry, and if they're not willing to abide by whatever regulations, I believe the gentleman from Colorado indicated that there's other restrictions federally, statewide.
And I want to go on the record too, as saying we said this in the meeting that these regulations they're very, very well written and very achievable, except for the 1,000 is a little questionable. But That's what we're doing here. So good job on writing all of it. And just wanted to throw that out there as a consideration. It could push more black market possibility.
I think you're going to have to take that up with the state because it's the state that regulated that at the 300 feet. So
No, in the ordinance.
you're going to have to step up to the microphone and identify yourself if we're going to have a discussion.
Sorry. Peter Paris again. I guess to be clear, it's all establishments that's in the ordinance. Like I said in my first talk, you could be a baker making cookies with infused oils. Not the packagers, not the people making rolled cigarettes, that type of thing. That's the rub. I can't figure that one out.
And are they regulated at the 300 feet by the state?
Yes, they are. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, they are regulated as a canvas establishment. So they would need to be 300 feet from a school or a daycare. So we just, when it's not a school or daycare, we regulated them from residences, churches, et cetera, at the 1,000-foot level, but we don't have to do it at that distance. But we just carried that forward to residences and churches. But the state saw fit to regulate their distance from a school or daycare.
So with that, I'll close the public hearing and open it for discussion or consideration to the commissioners.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, before we get into the distance and the measurements, under the ordinance 95, it talks about the fire inspections.
Yes.
So on a grow farm, what are they going to inspect? They're not going to inspect the residents, are they?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Lanier, I don't really, I would defer to the fire chief to know what he would need to look at. There is a regulation that he would be going by, so.
Commissioners, no, we would not be inspecting the residents, only any facilities that the fire code pertains to as a business, mostly buildings, electrical, fire hazard, extinguishers if required, all depending on the building code and fire codes.
So like the greenhouse,
The
dry room,
yep.
something like that.
I suppose if they added onto their greenhouse and are living in a structure that's attached to their greenhouse, that
There can be a firewall separation, keeping your residents separate, and we would not go into it in that case.
Any other questions, discussion? Nobody wants to grab a hold of the elephant? So, go ahead.
All right, I do agree, just my opinion. Jeremy, thank you for the tour yesterday. Really appreciate that. Or Jason, I'm sorry. That helped me a lot yesterday. The odor was a lot different. I'm very uneducated in this field. I was a school teacher for several years and I smelled it a lot, I thought. And then we went through your facility and it was very surprising on your filter system and all of that. My case is, as I definitely have a problem with the measurement from property line to property line. I don't remember which one talked about. You're just going to have a piece of 1,000 feet strip of just what would be there. And so I have a problem with that. I think, maybe looking at changing from the residence to the corner of the field or the property line, I think we should should maybe look at something like that.
The closest point between the security fencing and any neighboring residents.
Right. And that's my other question. So on a large farm, are they gonna have to fence the entire, like if you have a 200-acre farm, are you gonna have to have a 6-foot fence all the way around that?
All THC cannabis has to be.
And a security system? Oh. So that would be my suggestion, and then when somebody brings up the feet, we.
Any suggestion on distance?
Well, I was the one that proposed 1,000 feet. I want to take the feet off. Now it comes out. I'm the one, and I guess I just didn't think about it. I quit hitting my chair. Yeah. The 1,000, to me now, the 1,000 feet is unreasonable.
300 feet is a football field.
300 feet.
I have to visualize things in those perspectives.
So that would be my question, to Peter and Joe, is what would be your best number? 300 feet, 500 feet, 800 feet, what would be your best number if we went from property line to residence? Either one.
My case, as far as my property, there's a lot of unused. Sorry, Joe Rhodes.
I got you in trouble.
Yeah. The way my property sits is there is a lot of unusable property where it goes down into a ravine, back up a ravine, but there is another house right on that property. For my grow area to that house, 500 to 600 feet, easy. So if I could suggest end of your grow where you'll fence that off to the residence at 300 feet, I'm happy.
Yes, sir. I was just curious.
Like I said, hemp, it's the same plant. Cannabis sativa. There's no restrictions on square footages. The state comes and looks at your property and they give you a license. So the same issues that you think you're gonna have with THC, the evil weed, is going to be, it's already there with the hemp. So the original restrictions of 300 feet from a cannabis retail store was to just create some buffer from a new establishment. It was illegal for many years and now it's new. So they wanted to keep that from there. The schools came from the war on drugs and they want to keep a distance from there. The residence thing it's really going to depress the opportunities for small businesses within the county. Everything is 1,000 foot from another residence. Property line to a residence. Like I said, if I have 100 acres and there's a residence 900 feet from my property, I won't be able to do anything. So.
Thank you. Yeah, we have to look at not just the farms, because when these start popping up, we're going to get bombarded by local people that are like, hey, how can we stop these people from growing literally 20 feet from us? And so that's kind of what we're trying to look at is to represent everyone in our districts.
And kids go home from schools to their residence.
That's right.
And if the state has allowed that buffer of 300 feet, I don't think it's unreasonable to follow that. I would agree with the originator of the 1,000 feet that is not as reasonable.
And I would agree too, because I sit here and think, where did we come up with the 1,000? I go back and forth, and then it was introduced too that it had to do with the adult entertainment industry also. But if we're safeguarding schools and daycares, it seems to me that why not the same standard is what I'm thinking. And I mean, I guess I would ask Commissioner Totticini as far as the smell, because you've experienced that, you've had that. Yesterday, there wasn't a huge change. I don't know at what stage all these plants were either compared to what they are in the fields. So I haven't experienced that in the fields before personally. So I'm just curious.
Well, like I was a high school teacher too. Talk about secondhand smoke. But I mean, and on the Navajo Nation, it wasn't really regulated. So it was all brand new and to everybody. But I was glad to have gone on the tour, and I could see, you know, if it's really controlled and there's a lot of care and taking care of it and following the laws, then you can see that it's not as, you know, like what we dealt with on the nation. So I'm kind of receptive to what my fellow commissioners, what we can compromise on and agree with, and also looking at the state, their laws on this. So, but I guess if you're in a rural area, you know, the odor's always there. But you know, it's not there. The wind blows different ways. Sometimes you smell it, sometimes you don't, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm open-minded on this.
So what were the stages?
Mr. Chairman, Commission, I was going to clarify yesterday what you saw. Our facility tests with third-party testing labs, and there is remember we were talking about terpene profiles? We test for terpene profiles, and those are the smells of the plants. And we're testing in the higher percentages of anyone in the nation. We're testing over 4% in our terpene profiles. Most people are testing at 0.5% to 1%. So what you smelled yesterday was some of the best terpene, highest riching, smelliest plants that you could find in the state. Not per me, per the labs that I test with. And you saw the plants in their latest stages of growth, which would be their most pungent, aromatic times. And you saw the smell. Or smelled the smell.
I don't know what was going on out at Hogback, but I mean, you drove into a wall of terpenes.
Really?
When was that?
Yeah.
When this was going on?
No, this was,
okay.
yeah.
But I didn't get to experience out there. So.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I don't know if this is my role to suggest a different measurement, but I had a thought about it while we were talking about it. And I would suggest that it would be the property line of the school or daycare or church or residence to either the security fence or the actual edifice of the cannabis establishment. Because if you do it building to building, if it's from the residence, the actual building to the establishment, 300 feet is a lot shorter. I think about a playground at a school. And in that event, I would think you would want the property line to be your measuring distance to the actual, let's say a cannabis establishment locates downtown from like Sacred Heart School. It could potentially be
But
close to that.
they have zoning, so.
That's true. That's true. I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking about that, but yeah, we're dealing with the county, so that's a lessened worry, at least as far as schools go.
I think it makes the most sense from the edge of, and I'm going to use huge air quotes, but from the edge of the nuisance or what we're restricting. So the security fence to the actual residence, and then at whatever distance is proposed to amend, whether it's or keep the 1,000 feet. And I don't know if that makes it more difficult for the sheriff marshal or for the chief to figure that out. You're going to have to get your rangefinder and to be able to calculate it. But I think that's probably the fairest way to do that, because we don't have zoning. And so I think we're left with trying to figure out what's a fair way to ensure that there's some distance between the two. And, you know, there's the situation where there's a ravine. I'm sure there's going to be situations where down by the river where there's a swamp or a marsh or a creek or whatever that's going to be between the property line and that's the cannabis grower and where his actual fence line is for his operation. And so there's already a buffer right there. And I think that they need to get the benefit of that buffer within their property between the actual nuisance or what we're regulating to the residents, if that makes sense.
Some natural barriers.
Well, I think it just makes most sense to, if they're already going to have a fence that is around what they're doing as a business that we're limiting or restricting with this ordinance, that be the line from where we start to measure. So we measure from that to the actual thing that we're saying that we want them to stay away from. So from that fence line to the residents or the church or the things that are listed in this ordinance, I think that's the fairest way to measure that. I think that it's still restrictive, but it's not. I think it's the least restrictive means that makes the most sense, in my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would add to that comment would be that if the grower or the retailer or whoever were to expand their operation, that they need to notify the county of such expansion.
Well, if they expand it, they're going to have to move their fence.
Right. So if they come closer to the residents, they may not be within, they may be closer than that, whatever distance you all choose to select.
Well, and I think that's their responsibility. And you know, if they're responsible growers, they're going to make sure that when they expand, they're within that, whatever that distance is. Because like they said, if they violate that, then they're going to be in violation of the ordinance, and you know, sure, those punishments are going to kick in, and it might affect their ability to stay licensed with the state. I don't know how it would affect that, but perhaps to avoid that, there needs to be a clause in that if the operation expands, that there's a requirement to update the business registration or the, sure, you know, I'll leave that to Joe, so everybody can yell at him and not me. But, you know, put a requirement on that after their initial inspection, that if they expand their operation, they're required to have another inspection or something along those lines. Keep the chief in business.
And Mr. Chairman, just one other thought for you. You may have a large property and you've got a residence in the middle of the property. Maybe it's more than 1,000 feet, but for whatever reason, they built their swing set up against their property line. So they may meet the requirements of a setback, whatever setback you all choose, but they've decided to put their recreational equipment right up against the property line, which would be closer than whatever that distance is that you choose. So
I think we have to just define it as, I mean, we have to choose what we define it as, and I think we've already chosen residents. So,
Mr. Chairman, you might be able to avoid that, and it might not exactly meet Mr. Rokas's needs, but if you went property line of the cannabis establishment to the, well, I guess it wouldn't even work there, even to the residents, you still have that predicament.
Yeah, I think I would just prefer to stick to residents.
And that's a voluntary action if they put a swing set there if they know, I mean, that Are you talking about if there's an existing?
Existing.
Okay, yeah, that would be a voluntary action on their part, so.
But
knowing.
if the swing set was existing.
Well, and,
Not the
and they're farm kids, they're gonna be running all over that place. So
right.
that whole place is their playground.
They're probably gonna be trying to climb over the fence.
Hopefully the security cameras catch it.
That's right.
I have a comment if you're willing to entertain
Sure. Just state your name.
Jeremy Bonin. I just wanted to make one other suggestion. The city of Cortez actually measures their distance as a pedestrian travels. So, for instance, you know, you would go out of the driveway, go down the road and come back to your facility. And I also want to point out that parks are included in this. And how do you figure out where the edge of the building of a park is? I mean, property line kind of makes sense to the corner of the grow, but maybe you measure it in a way that a pedestrian would travel. Just another wrench to throw at you.
Mr. Chairman, you ready for motion?
Ready to make the motion?
I would move that we amend. Correct me if
We
I,
approve the ordinance as is
Yeah.
with an amendment?
yeah, approve the ordinance as is and amend the 1,000 feet to 300 feet from the fence.
Hey, Mike, what about my motion?
Commissioner Sullivan, Commissioner Lanier beat you to the punch.
And I know I put you on hold, Commissioner Sullivan. Do you want to listen to what he's proposing and see if you support it and I suppose you could second that motion if you support it. Listen to what he's saying. He's proposing that we amend it to 300 feet. So let's hear the motion from Commissioner Lanier, and then if you want to propose a separate or alternative motion or amendment, you can propose that.
All right, so from the fenced area to the corner of the residence, the nearest corner of the residence.
And that be 300 feet?
And that be 300 feet.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, so or edifice of the church or
Correct.
Communities, to the building.
And if there is no building, what do we do with the park? I want to address that ranch.
Mr. Chairman, you could have it be special for parks, could be the property line.
The
just
edge of
parks.
the improved portion of the park.
That would work also.
I think school, churches, and daycares is already done by the state and separate from the 1,000 feet in our ordinance. Is that correct?
Schools and daycares.
Schools and daycares. So churches would be included with the residents, churches, library, cultural center, community center, public park, or government facility. You want to keep all of those in there?
Yes. Did I get it clear?
Mr. Sawyer, would you summarize what we're proposing?
Yes, you're going to approve the ordinance with the amendment that instead of 1,000 feet, it'd be 300 feet from the fenced area of the cannabis establishment.
The security fence or whatever that language is from that regulation, input that language of what that security fence is.
Okay. To the nearest corner of the residence, building, structure, or improved portion of a park. And I can flesh that out. It'd be the edifice that contains the cultural center, as far as government buildings go, would it be to, I guess it'd be the edge of the government building as well, the nearest corner?
Yes.
Do you feel comfortable that I have it?
Commissioner Linear,
Yes.
does that cover
Yes,
your,
that sounds
your amendment? Commissioner Sullivan, did you hear that?
Yeah, I don't care. Put it down however you want to, because it'll probably change over time anyway. Yeah, I'm good.
Would you like a second?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, did you get all of that? Do you need any clarification?
No, Chairman, we've got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure before we kept the train running.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Wayne, who we'll introduce later, just brought up to me that I defined the distances for school and daycare centers. So would the amendment be from the property line of the daycare center to the fenced area of the cannabis establishment, or the property line of the school?
That's the one where the state uses the property line to property line measurement. Is that?
I believe so.
Talking about section B of section 3B. Is that what we're talking about?
And I don't, unfortunately, I didn't grab the regulations to make sure that it's defined in the regulations. If it's defined in the regulations, I'd assume you'd want to go with the measurement distance and regulations. But I just wanted to be sure.
As far as what the state defines those as for daycares, because we can't be more restrictive than what the state requires.
Right.
So I would propose leaving that as to however the state defines that, because I don't want to open that can of worms with the state.
Okay. So I'll echo the state's definition for that portion.
Chairman, so are you amending the motion, or is that already in?
I don't think that amends the motion, because what we amended was section 3A is all that we amended. And there was a motion to approve the ordinance as written, which would still cover what the state's definition was with the amendment to section 3A. So I think the only thing that we're amending is section 3A with the.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that's correct.
Thank you for the clarification.
Is there any further discussion? Ms. Wayne, who's yet to be introduced, do you have anything else?
Only that. Also, section C.
Section C.
So it's A, C.
A and C. Keeping us on our toes. We appreciate that. Because that's the definition of the measurement for our statute.
Yes, I'm glad she pointed that out.
Clear as mud?
I think I've got it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Not hearing any opposition, I presume that it passes unanimously and the motion carries. Which gets us to item number 8, report on inspection of the detention center. Mr. Sawyer.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, every year a statute requires the Board of County Commissioners to inspect the detention center and then to provide a report. So it's not necessarily due yet, but I'm just reminding you that that's something that you'll need to do in the upcoming months. I'm sure you remember Mr. Dredd and then Doug Eccles afterwards always reminding me of this. So this is my first reminder.
Heavy hand. All right. Are you done?
Yes.
Okay, so it brings us to our report from the county manager, Mr. Stark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I was not going to give you a report tonight.
Oh, good. Okay, well, we'll move on.
But I would just state what you already are aware of, that the governor has issued a new public health order for both masks and vaccines. Face masks are required starting Friday, August 20th in any public indoor spaces, regardless of vaccination status. And it applies to everyone ages 2 and up, starting this Friday. So we'll be meeting with our COVID internal team tomorrow, first thing, and then be sending out the subsequent guidance to all of our employees. And then relative to vaccines, it does not necessarily directly apply to any of our operations here, but we're verifying that one potential may be our juvenile facility, because in the definition of a congregate care facility, it mentions juvenile justice facilities, but we think that does not apply, and we're getting clarification on that. But otherwise, there are going to be required vaccinations for those that work hospitals, congregate care facilities, starting in the next 10 days. They'll be required to go get vaccines. And if you are vaccinated, you're going to have to show proof. You're the operator of a hospital contractor provide site services. It's not just those employees. So, I forwarded copies of both of these public health orders to you. I just want to make sure you're fully aware of what was in them. There are some exemptions for those if you meet the conditions under ADA, Civil Rights Act of 1964. But you'll have to go apply for those exemptions through letter, show that you've got a disability, et cetera. So some pretty voluminous changes that are taking place here in fairly short order. So just want to make you aware of that and stand for any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Stark? All right, that brings us to reports from elected officials and department heads.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Mr. Sawyer.
Yes. I'd like to introduce our new deputy county attorney. This is Miss Ellen Wayne. She comes to us from the city, and we're really happy to have her here. And that's it.
Welcome.
Chairman and members of the commission. I just would like to report that today we had our meeting with the Navajo Nation, Commissioner Tototini, Commissioner Sullivan, and then there were some county staff also that attended. At this point, it's virtually a work in progress, and I'll keep you updated.
Is this regarding the precinct boundaries, chapter boundaries issue?
Conforming the chapter boundaries, the precinct boundaries to the chapter boundaries that's being requested by the Navajo Nation.
And you're going to keep this updated?
Yes, Chairman.
Awesome. Okay. Any others? No? No bridge updates? Huh?
Actually, you probably should.
All right, give us a bridge update.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, it has been a long time since you received a bridge update. Bridge is under construction, roughly 25% through the contract, both time-wise and money-wise, but do want to make you all aware, because there won't be another meeting between now and then. There is a scheduled closure, daytime closure of the bridge for, right now it's August 31st and September 1st. That's for the delivery and install of 2 large bridge girders, obviously working with Devin on notifications and the sheriff's office on any emergency response, but that's the update.
Can we schedule a field trip?
Absolutely. That would be a great day to do it. The 30th or the 1st, probably the 30th, because it may only take a day. To see 2 550-ton cranes actually be kind of impressive.
I want video because I'm going to be out of town.
Okay. If you want, That for sure, Mike, I could provide if I had some of that stuff.
That would be interesting.
Thank you for the update. Any other reports from elected officials, department heads?
Mr. Chair, Navajo Nation just lost a former Navajo Nation president. He was the fifth one. That was Kelsey Begay. And when he was president, he had appointed me on the Navajo Nation Water Rights Commission.
That was like, he was from 99 to
88.
or 98 to for a term.
Yeah. So, and also, I guess most of you heard in the news about the shooting in Albuquerque in a middle school. And I know I have a grandson who's starting middle school. And, you know, we think of the teachers and the students and, you know, you always heard about it elsewhere and it's beginning to be, you know, hitting here. Like I remember in Aztec High School and now in Albuquerque at this middle school. So I think we just need to be real careful and I'm glad there's a lot of focus now on the mental health of individuals and going down children to law enforcement too. And probably even now with our overly work of medical staff because the COVID numbers are going back up again. But I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Any other reports? Brings us to comments, input from the general public limited to subjects the commission has not previously discussed or formal action has not been taken. No formal action will be taken at this meeting that relates to comments or input from the general public. Comments can be made in person. Anybody here in person wish to make a comment? We're all commented out. Or remotely, do we have anybody remotely? Do we have any emails that are comments?
Not other than
what we already did in the public hearing. So with that, I don't think there are any comments. With that, we've exhausted our agenda, so I'll declare the meeting adjourned.